Hi, I'm Chuck Dorsett for Weaver Leather Supply. Segment 4 in our series on stamps. We're going to look at some border stamps. In fact, there are so many that I love. We're going to break this up into 2 segments. Now, border stamps. We can simply drop these in on a border. They look great, make our project very unique. But also, if we stack these, like we've seen with some other stamps, some very cool things can happen. We're going to take a look at that. All right, so anything I use in this video, weaverleathersupply.com or check below. We've got links there, going to take you straight to our website. Also, if you want to know when our videos release, just click your notifications. You'll know exactly when these come out. So we talked about anchor lines, border lines, casing our leather. Well, you know what? Let's skip that. Let's just go straight to stamping. Let's start with 2 stamps that I consider very traditional stamps. These are both called serpentine stamps because if we offset these, we're going to get a serpentine design on this. We probably have seen these if we're not familiar with them. The big point with this, we've got to line these up. We have to take our time to line them up, but also the consistency in the stamp head. Now, the saddle folks, they can nail it every time. The rest of us, we've got to work at it. But what I've done is I've dropped in a groove line, 1/8 of an inch in, then I'm going to drop in a guide line, 1/8 of an inch further, or about 1/4 inch from our edge. Let's start with a scalloped serpentine. Now, it's a lot of stamp here, so we've got to work at getting this consistent. So let's drop that in on our guide line. There we go. Relatively consistent. Now, I could go a little bit heavier up here. We can correct that simply by dropping our stamp back in. In fact, I can feel it snap back down in there. Let's work a little bit over that way. There we go. We've got a good, consistent stamp. Now, our next stamp, I'm going to overstamp just a hair. We don't want a transition line. That's the biggest point, but also we need to make sure we're lined up. There we go. Not bad. I can see a little transition there, but again, the saddle folks nail it every time. I'm going to work this down. Well, there we go. Not bad. Nice border design. Now the tricky part, we're going to offset this. So let's come in right at 5/8 of an inch or about 1.58 centimeters and let's drop in another guide line. There we go. I'm only going to do half because we're going to spread this out a little bit further. All right. Now I've got to line this up both on my guide line and within this oval. I want that centered. So let's drop that in, do our best to line up. There we go. We're starting to see that serpentine. Let's do a couple more. Okay, there we go. So now we see that serpentine. I could line these up a little bit better, but again, talking and stamping, not the best way to go. Let's do this. Let's come out 7/8 of an inch or about 2.22 centimeters. There we go. Basically, we're just spreading this out a little bit, but let's see how this looks. There we go. Now we've got a little bit more of a say a Victorian look. We're spreading that out. Now, here's one. We're going to see this here several times, but this is pretty cool. Well, that's a pretty cool design. How about we drop a letter stamp right in the middle of that? Very unique design. All right, let's step over to what's called a serpentine royal. Lot more detail on this stamp. So let's drop in our guide line. And again, let's take our time on this one. In fact, the more time we take, the better this is going to look. Consistency, again, that's what we're aiming for. Nice, crisp stamp. Let's do a few more. Okay, now we're going to reverse this. We could always drop in a line, but basically what I'm going to do, let's get a good close-up. Notice I've got a point right there. I'm going to drop my two edges, or the heel of the tool, right on the top of the points going that way. I'm going to do my best to drop that point right on the center. Okay, let's do a few more. Now that's a stamp with a lot of detail to it, isn't it? Now I can come back and work on this and make it a little more consistent. If we're in our shop by ourselves, absolutely. Now let's try this with this stamp. Very cool design. We've got two squares. Absolutely, we can do a diamond and a square, or right there flat. Let's take this out a little bit more. How cool is that design? I love that. In fact, we'll spread this out with one of the other tools. This makes a cool pattern. Okay, let's step over to what we call a meander stamp. And we've got our groove line. Let's drop in our guide line 1/4 of an inch out. Good, and again, we'll overstamp that so we won't see this. So a meander. This has got a bit of a sunburst effect. A lot less metal on this head, so I need to back off on my pressure a little bit. Yeah, there we go. Very crisp, very clean. I can see every detail in that. So let's work our way down just like our serpentine. All right, there we go. Makes kind of a subdued border design. Let's do this. Let's come out